guys, this is Shelby with the Rogers Public Library. So this week for Full Steam Ahead, I want to talk to you guys about two different kinds of books. One is called a field guide, and the other one is called a bestiary. So the first field guides, they're basically tools to help us study nature, right? So they're smaller so that you can not just read them in the library, but you can take them with you outside and go study animals and try to identify them. So this one has really nice picture illustrations, like photographs of different animals like blue jays and goldfinches. It's from the National Audubon Society. So this is a group that studies birds and encourages people to study birds. And there's other ones like this is mammals, and it has illustrations instead of photographs, right? But the focus is on science and on observation, right? And actually going out and doing science in the real world. In contrast, bestiaries, they're also books of animals, right? But not necessarily ones that you're going to find in nature. There's things like unicorns and phoenixes we see here on the cover. This also has things like minotaurs and dragon stories about them, right? So it's more mythological or fantastical, you might say, right? And these are bestiaries are a lot older than field guides, right? We've only had field guides for a little over 100 years. I think the first ones were published in the 1890s. But these are the bestiaries kind of have their roots like way back in ancient Greece. Like people like for instance Aesop, right? If you ever read Aesop's fables, like the tortoise and the hare, or the lion and the mouse, right? That's kind of the same type of thing. And because there's not as focus on observation and science, you can get really weird illustrations. So for instance, this is a drawing of a duck, right? This is pretty normal because people who wrote bestiaries knew what ducks looked like. They probably saw them pretty often. And then this is a giraffe, right? So the person who drew this didn't know what a giraffe looked like, right? They never seen one. They probably just heard someone say, well, it's kind of like a camel, but it has a long neck. And or they might have heard someone say, well, it's kind of like a camel and a leopard because it has spots. And you get weird illustrations like this, right? And so we can say, there's practical differences between these books, but there's also philosophical differences. In the philosophy, we can call it science. You might also call it empiricism. In this philosophy, it has it has a lot to do with this guy, right? Hassan ibn al-Haytham. He was really the first modern scientist, the first person who used the scientific method to study nature. And he wrote a lot about experiments that he did about light and how our eyes work and how things like lenses and mirrors work. So it's really cool. We have these two books here. If you want to check them out, if you want to learn more about the history of science and of the scientific method. Right, but the craft this week, we're going to make our own books, right? And most books, they're connected either one of two ways. They might be stitched together or they're glued together. This is one that I glued together out of cardboard and paper, right? It didn't turn out super well. It looks nice on the outside, but it's kind of stiff and hard to use. And then this is one that I stitched together. It's really easy to make. It'll only take you a couple minutes. And that's the craft that we're going to be doing this week. Right? So the first step is you're going to want to get about 5 sheets of paper and clamp them together like this. The second step is poking holes in the paper. This is called an awl. You're going to want a grown-up to help you if you use one of these because it's pretty sharp, right? You can hurt yourself if you're not careful. You can also use something like a thumbtack. That might be a little bit easier, but you'll have to work the hole a little bit better and make it nice and big, right? You're basically trying to make holes to put a needle through, right? So we can stitch things together. And I'll show you guys. This is going to be the outside of our book. It's a piece of foam. So we're going to fold it in half. Press down the edge, right, so that there's a seam. And this will just kind of give us a sense of where we want the book to be. And because we want to line it up with the holes, we're going to do this. Poke one hole. Two holes. And then Okay. So we have the holes in our spine and we have the holes in our paper. Now we're going to get some thread. This is what is this called? This is basically like thread that you might use to to make a bag or to sew or anything, but it's a little bit stronger. It's been waxed, so it's stiff and sturdier. I think this should be about enough. You don't need a lot because the book isn't too big. And then this is a yarn needle, right? So it's made out of plastic. It's quite a bit bigger than a normal sewing needle. I'm gonna put it through, and we're gonna tie the ends together. Just gonna make a nice knot. And I give an extra twist just so, to make it a little bit thicker, right? Because what you want is you want to be able to put the string through the holes, like so. And for the knot to get caught and not go through the hole, so it'll stay in place. And then I'm putting it through the second hole. And then through the third hole. All right, and I'm making sure the string is nice and tight. You don't want to pull it too tight because then the book will be warped, but you don't want you don't want it to be loose either, right? Because it won't hold everything together correctly. And then we're just going back over, right? Back to the middle hole, but on the opposite, right? We basically, right, so we went from the middle to the bottom on this side, and now we're going from the middle to the bottom on this side. Pull that a little bit, and then we're going back up to the top hole. And ta-da. And then the hard part is tying it off. So you're going to want to make another knot, just like the one you started with, which is pretty easy to do with the needle, and pulling it as close to the book as you can. Right? And then, if you want, you can do it like this and kind of have a bookmark, but I'm going to cut it a little bit closer because I think it looks a little bit neater that way. And I'm going to take off the clips. You don't actually need to keep it clipped the whole time. That was just me being a little bit silly. Right? And now we have a book, right? So you can write in it. It looks like this already actually has a picture on it. It looks like I might have gotten a piece of paper that had a bit of printing on it. So you probably won't want to do that. But see, so it's basically the same as this one. The only difference is I added a button to the front. I just sewed it on using smaller thread, not this wax kind, so that it closes a little bit better. So that's our craft for this week. So I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next Monday.